I'm about to give you 4 tips on how not to be broke. 4 tips on how not to be broke. And let me start with this. The hardest working people are not necessarily the ones making the most money or making a lot of money. The hardest working people don't necessarily make the money. And let me give you an example. A hotel. You know who the hardest working people are in a hotel? You guessed it, the housekeepers. The housekeepers sometimes got to clean 30 rooms in an hour or something like that. And you know what? They're probably paid little, if not minimum wage, maybe a little bit more. They're hardest working people, but they're paid the less in, say, a hotel chain. And that's across the board in a lot of different industries. So the answer isn't working the hardest. The answer is working the smartest. It's the smart people who make all the money. And so let me say this. How do you get smart? You get smart by reading books, man. Educating yourself. Listening to podcasts of people who are successful and they're kicking wisdom and game and knowledge. And I'm going to tell you what a problem is with a lot of people is you spend more time entertaining yourself than you do educating yourself. Again, you spend more time entertaining yourself than you do educating yourself. Now, I do understand there's nothing wrong with doing both. But let me say this for myself. I like sports. I like football, basketball, and I do watch it. But I can't remember the last time I sat down and watched a 3-hour game. I cannot. I get, quote unquote, the Cliff Notes version on YouTube. So on YouTube, you could put in the game and it will give you 15 minutes of all 4 quarters of the greatest, best moments. And that's all I need. I know what happened in that 3-hour game in 15 minutes. I'm not getting paid for watching basketball. I don't need to give them 3 hours of my time. Again, and there's nothing wrong with entertainment, but I also say that with watching television. I don't watch a lot of television. And again, Netflix, some people could sit down and watch 4 hours of Netflix. But let me say this. You're at home watching Netflix, you're watching people on TV, you're watching the sports, you're watching other people live their dreams. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but how much time are you dedicated to watching somebody else achieve their dreams and live their dreams, all right? So I want to start with that. Now I'm about to move on to the next section on the 4 ways how you cannot be broke. All right, so I want to talk about the 4 levels of making money. Now, let me start by this. There's a gentleman that I follow on YouTube. His name is Myron Golden. Type in his name in YouTube. He'll pull up hundreds of videos, man. But in one of his videos, he's talked about this. The 4 levels to making money. The first level people use to make money is you use your muscle. You trade your time for hours. Your muscle. So you are an employee at a company. Let's say you're a janitor. You work at Walmart. You work so many hours per day and you're paid per hour, or maybe you're paid a salary, right? That is the first level. Now to think about that, you can make anywhere from minimum wage to maybe a couple $100,000 a year. Cool. As an employee. But just know there's a ceiling. There is definitely a ceiling. And another thing you must know that you could be fired. All right. So first level is using your muscle, which is you are an employee. The second level of making money is managerial. You are the supervisor. You're the manager. You tell people what to do. Now, you may not necessarily be the worker. You may give instructions or you may get to, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but you tell people what to do. And that person can make anywhere from, a mid 70, 80 grand to a couple hundred, maybe more than 100 grand a year. And that's cool. You're not necessarily doing the blood and sweat work. You're instructing people and telling them what to do. All right. Second level. Now, the third level and the fourth level, this is where we start talking the big bucks, the multi-millionaires. The third level of earning income, money, is your communication, using this tongue, using this mouth, talking to people. Now, let's say, so that includes car salesmen and real estate agents and people who sell insurance and timeshares. You talk to people and you do sales. You sales. Now, I'm going to tell you something. A lot of people say they don't like sales, but I'm going to tell you something. If you're not selling, you're buying. If you're not selling, you're being sold. So the statistics show that 95% of people don't like sales. And 5% of people love sales. So that's good for the salesman, because you know what that means? That means that the 5% is selling to the 95%, guys. And the reason why you probably don't like sales is probably because maybe you had someone who sold you something and they didn't give you the correct information. They sold you a piece of crap. They sold you something you didn't need, didn't want, and then they just try to pressure you. And I do understand that. What that was is that wasn't a good salesman. Because when I sell you something or try to say so, I'm not selling you something that I want you to buy. I want to sell you something that you need. You know what I'm saying? Let me give you an example. If you clean your house with a broom, that's cool. But what if I introduce you to a vacuum cleaner? You know what I'm saying? That could do that job so much faster and save you a lot of time. Now, you was already cleaning your house with a broom, but let me introduce you to a vacuum cleaner. That might cost more, but over the time, but you replace that broom every other month. But this vacuum comes with a 5-year warranty. That's a difference. I'm selling you something that you could use that would save you time, money, and effort and sweat. All right? That's just an example. You just wasn't dealing with a good salesman. All right, so that was communication. You're selling things to people. Your timeshares, it could be, and then there's another level of that. You know what also? Using communication, you're a playwright. You write books. You're an author. You're an author, right? You wrote a book. Some people write a book one time. You wrote a book 10 years ago, and sometimes that book still makes them money to this day. You're a playwright. You write movies. Tyler Perry wrote plays and movies, and he's he's a billionaire now. He's close to it. Communication. He took his communication and created people and characters and wrote plays, and he hires other people. Communicate. Oh, you're a songwriter. You're a rapper. You think of Jay-Z. You think of the people that sing songs. They write songs. They communicate on paper, and you buy what they have through their communication. Use your communication to make money. Now, people who use communication, those people can make hundreds of thousands to hundreds of millions of dollars. Taylor Swift makes a couple $100 million a year. Jay-Z is a billionaire. Yeah. Tyler Perry, hundreds of millions of dollars. Public speakers. Those are people who are making the big bucks, and the only thing they do is comedians. How can I forget? Comedians. Some comedians, if they reach that upper echelon, they're communicating, they're talking to you, they're entertaining you, and you're buying tickets, you're going to their movies, you're buying their books, and they're making millions. What are they using? They're using their mouth. All right? So I started, number one was using your muscle. You're an employee. Number two is managerial. You're a supervisor. You tell people what to do. Delegate was the word. You delegate people what to do. You're a manager, you're delegating. And number three, you use your communication. Now, the number four are some of the richest people in the world. You could be a millionaire, you could be a billionaire if you use this. And this is your imagination. You create something that doesn't exist that could change the world. Or you create something that is better or changes the game on something that's already created. I got examples. Let's start with some billionaires. Let's start with Elon Musk. I know some people don't like him no more because he's down with Trump, but he's a billionaire. He say they one of the richest men in the world. What did he do? He did not create the car. But what he did was he made it better for some people by creating the electric car. He took something that was already out and he made it better. He's credited with revolutionizing the auto industry with creating electric cars, and it made him $1 billion. Let's talk about Jeff Bezos. People were already doing mail-in orders. People already ordering off the telephone and mailing in orders, but he created Amazon, where you could just order something on your smartphone and computer and have it delivered to your house in 1 day, 2 days. And you can order almost anything off Amazon. I've ordered furniture to dish detergent on Amazon, and it comes to your house in a day or two. Let's say Mark Zuckerberg. He's not credited with creating social media. Social media was already out. But he changed the game with social media. Billionaire. You take, and we could even talk about people who became billionaires. The Wright brothers. They created the airplane. Remember the airplane? The airplane. Something a lot of people get on. Many years ago, they said, what would it be like to travel in the air? They were bold. Because who wants to be a guinea pig for the first airplane? But they used their imagination. And it changed the world. Now, there's plenty of other examples that you could think of. But that's just a few. The richest people in the world are not employees. The richest people in the world are people who use communication and their imagination. All right, guys? And let me talk about me now. I use my communication every day. And, I wrote 2 books. Matter of fact, I'm going to put those links down here. I wrote 2 books. One book was about me on how to overcome a lot of things that I overcome in my life. The second book was how I started running cars and how I have a rental car industry, a rental car business, where I utilized my assets to make money. So I wrote a book, and let me just be honest with you, I sell a few books a week. Right at this moment, I sell enough books to pay my cell phone bill every week if I wanted to. I make money selling books. I'm also what else I do? I produce comedy shows. I'm a comedian and producer of comedy shows. That's using my communication to entertain people. But I do a lot more, but that's not the point. How not to be broke? Multiple sources of income, guys. So let me say this. Jay-Z is a billionaire, but it wasn't music that made him a billionaire, guys. Music was his introduction to millions because he was a great rapper, but he's also a businessman. It was the business that made him a billionaire. The business, not music, made him a millionaire. Business made him a billionaire. Music made him a millionaire. Business made him a billionaire. For an example, I got somebody else, Michael Jordan. Basketball did not make Michael Jordan a billionaire. Basketball made him a millionaire. Business made him a billionaire. Business, Michael Jordan, the sneakers, the Gatorade, the endorsement after endorsement, to owning a team. It made him a billionaire, guys. You cannot keep all your eggs in one basket. So if the millionaires and the billionaires are doing it, why aren't you doing it? All right? Listen, who else? Rihanna's a billionaire. It wasn't music that made her a billionaire. It was her cosmetic line? She was a millionaire for music. Business made her a billionaire. And there's countless others. So I'm going to end with this. All right, check this out. Listen up. If you were born poor, that's not your fault. But if you die poor, that is your fault.